So this time, a young PhD student from Colorado School of Mines, I think, joined me for a day or so, and I'll introduce you to Joshua a little bit later when I find him. He's off finding his own hot rocks. So let's see what we got. I've been finding the usual columbites. Oh, found it already. And it looks like another columbite. Yep. Well, that was easy. Oh, looks like it's a pretty good long crystal. So right over there behind the camera is where I found that last nice little crystal. And I've actually found a lot of specimens uphill from here. And so this time I decided I would work this downhill slope, because things always go downhill. And I've got a long ways to go. So no telling how many specimens I'll find down here. But they could be fewer and far between the further they get from the source. And I think that the last time I was here, I was actually in a pod of these columbites, and I showed them to you in my last video. Brought out some really nice specimens, including one that came out in 4 pieces. A really spectacular crystal. So I think the actual pegmatite is up there, and all these specimens have just washed down. Oh! As I talk, I moved it. Well, that's good. That way you don't have to listen to me jabber on. We'll make quick work of this one. Here, let's see what it is. Huh. Well, whatever it is, it's not very big. Huh. Boy, you're making a lot of noise. Oh, it fell off the pad. There it is. Oh, it's a nice monazite crystal. Yeah, it's got good crystal form. So right up there are my dogs, and I found a couple of specimens in this direction. Now this one here is different. It's quite hot. I can tell it's going to be a big specimen. It's very localized, and I think I can feel it down there. Hear that scratching around? I think it's right in here, so I'm gonna have to be careful about digging this one out. So this is what it turned out to be. It's not that big, but it is a screamer. It is very hot, so I'll have to go up and wash this one off and see what it looks like. Well, the dogs have had a busy morning following me around and Joshua around. This is your first time out to Petaca.
Yeah, and it's a great time. Yeah, out in the middle of nowhere.
And you you borrowed one of my gammaDogs to try it out this morning.
Yep.
Just one morning.
Yeah.
And you had some good success, right?
I had some great success.
All right, let's see what we got here.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Joshua and I were both searching for the same amount of time. I was searching in a different area, but this is Joshua's haul for the first morning using the gammaDog. I mean, this is unbelievable. This is one of the biggest columbites that I've seen. I have a couple that are a little bit bigger than that, but I mean, this is phenomenal for the first morning. Some very nice specimens, good crystal form. Yeah, what can you say? Are you satisfied with that haul?
I am very satisfied. It was a lot of fun to collect that. Just the thrill of the hunt, really. Yeah.
Okay, and this is my paltry sum, but I'm not complaining. I got a couple of columbites and a couple of little monocytes, of course. And I was digging in the hole that I was digging in on the last video, on the last trip. And I found all those pieces, and some of them I put together, and there were pieces missing. But I think this is a termination on one of the pieces that I have at home. So hopefully I'll be able to find the base part of that and make a really nice terminated crystal. But so far, this is the best. Let me zoom in on it here. This is the best thing that I've found. You'll see these are euxenite crystals, and you can just see all the twinning going on. And on this end, we've actually got a doubly terminated crystal. So this thing is just chock full of the euxenite crystals. So that's a spectacular specimen, but it's even better than I thought, because if you look over here, you'll see some little black crystals sticking out of here. That gave me the clue to turn it over, and you can see this whole area is a black patch. And I know from experience that that's actually columbite. And so this is an extra special association of euxenite and columbite with some absolutely splendid crystal form. So right up where my dogs are resting is where I found that really hot euxenite, and so I decided to look downhill to see what else I could find, and I found a couple of other things, probably columbite. Here looks promising as well. So judging how hot this one is, I think it's probably another euxenite crystal. Could be monocyte, but definitely not columbite. So we're fixing to get some rain, but here was where I found that euxenite crystal, and then right next to it, I must have reset the squelch here. There it is. Right next to it is another hot spot. So let me try to dig it before the rain starts. So I think this is another euxenite, but I'll have to wash it off here, and it's definitely way too hot for a columbite. And the interesting thing is that uphill from here I found a bunch of columbites and no euxenites, but it seems like downhill here there must be another part of the pegmatite that's weathered out with euxenites. So out of that same hole comes another specimen. Now this one doesn't seem to be quite as hot, and based on the color, I'm thinking it may be columbite. So out of that same hole, I've now pulled the third specimen. I'm thinking this is probably a columbite, because it's not terribly hot. Yeah, the first one was the wicked hot one, and the rest of these are evidently columbites. But maybe this was a pod, because I found, really hot one over here, and then a hot one here, and a couple of columbites. So maybe this little area was where they formed. So there are the two holes that I was just digging in, pulled out those, I think, 4 or 5 specimens. And right over here is another nice hot spot. So there were 2 pieces, apparently, of euxenite right next to each other in this hole. And you can see they are just wicked hot. So I left my dogs this morning right at the holes where I was finding those really hot euxenites yesterday. And I'm coming back down the hill, and there's a lot of country rock here. And so you get a lot of things that appear to be hits, but you find out that they're just too widely dispersed to be real hits. And eventually my dog will just raise the squelch setting. I'll do that to accelerate the process. But when you find an actual hit, it becomes much more obvious. That's what an actual hit sounds like. So you learn to differentiate, all the signals from the surrounding country rock, and wait till you find an actual hit before you start to dig. And so right beneath the surface, didn't take me but 15 seconds to dig it. Pop this nice big chunk of columbite.
Might be a dead end.
So Josh was digging in one of the holes that I dug last night and pulled a couple of nice specimens out of. And it still sounds hot to you?
Yeah.
It's not near as hot as...
Might be best to move on.
Might be best, yeah. There's a lot of hot spots out here.
Yeah.
So straight uphill from here is where I was finding those other euxenites, and then the columbite this morning, and I think I found another nice piece of euxenite. It's very hot. So after the really nice euxenites that I found yesterday, I decided to survey that area very closely, and specifically downhill from where I found those specimens. And this is what I came up with between yesterday afternoon and this morning. It's not terribly productive, but that happens. Sometimes you don't come up with anything, but I surveyed the area pretty closely, and I found a lot more euxenites. And I've got my dog here. You wake him up again. Okay, so I'm going to try to differentiate between the euxenites and the columbites. Now, this is obviously a columbite or columbite, however you want to call it. And because of its size, it goes pretty high. And here's a smaller, apparently a columbite. Okay, so that'll give you an idea. This one, I think, is also a columbite. Yeah, and this one, I think so. Let's see. Well, I don't know. That one seems more in the euxenite. Yeah, I'm going to put him over here. All right, so let's see what these euxenites sound like. Yeah, you can hear the difference immediately. And this one is interesting. It may be euxenite over here, and columbite over here. So I think for its size, that's pretty darn hot. So it's got to be euxenite. But I think when I get home and I XRF this side, it's going to come up columbite. So that's kind of peculiar to this area, that a lot of these specimens are combos. And like I say, this one also has that characteristic. It's wicked hot, but I think I see the black and the craggly, the craggly side over here is probably columbite. And let's see, this one's interesting because it's just perfectly flat over here. It's either a parting from a bigger crystal, or that's where it was attached to some mica. So that seems to be for its size, that seems to be pretty hot. So I'm going to call that euxinite. This guy has got some columbite looking fracture over here, kind of craggly, but this side over here looks like euxinite, and it's definitely in the euxinite. I'm going to call that a combo here. This little guy, I'm not sure what he is. He's probably columbite because he's not very hot at all. I'll put him over here, and this guy looks like euxinite. Yeah, he's at least mostly euxinite. There may be columbite over here. And my last specimen looks like another combo. Well, I don't know, may only be. Oh, okay, now this one you can tell one side is hotter than the other. So that's almost definitely a combo. Let's go back and look at some of these other combos, like that one. Okay, that's the columbite side. Yeah, you can tell the difference between the columbite side and the euxinite side. So that's a pretty nice haul. But I think I've surveyed that area enough, and I'm going to move on to another spot. See what else I can find. Well, it's 10:40 in the morning, and it's July, so the sun is really intense at this time of the day. So what I'm doing is moving from one shady spot to the next when I'm surveying this area. And here's a big prospecting pit. So there must have been something here at some point. And I've been looking over this area with a lot of quartz. It's pretty quiet till I get to this spot right here. You can see it's quiet all around. And the strange thing is, somebody actually started digging a hole here. It's a shallow hole, but they evidently gave up really quickly. So let me see if I have any better luck. So my dog is in automatic mode for surveying, but I'm going to put it in manual squelch mode so that I can set the squelch and it'll be quiet. And if it's not quiet, I can set the squelch again, and I can even bump up the squelch a little bit. Okay. Okay. So now it's set to be quiet, and but still sensitive enough to find the specimen once I get close to it. Assuming this is a specimen. It's actually very nice temperature if you're in the shade here. It's probably 70 something, but it's going to get into the 80s in the afternoon. I don't know. This hole may have been dug and then filled in again because the rocks are pretty loose. Of course, this also could be a pile from the pit over there. Okay. Seems to be directly below. This area has a lot of monazite, but unfortunately it's always, at least I've never found a big piece. I've always found little crystals, and they're in a pod, and it's not my favorite type of digging. I like to find some bigger specimens rather than a bunch of little ones. Yeah, I think we're getting closer. Seems to be right straight down. I don't know, it's this quartz here, the way that it's packed together looks like it's probably weathered quartz that is just breaking apart really easily in here. So I don't think anybody's ever dug this hole before. It's just a place where the quartz has degraded to the point where you can just pull it apart. It's just a good sign. It's a very good sign. So if we're really lucky, we'll get a nice specimen still stuck on the quartz. So let's see. I don't think I pulled anything out yet. Yeah. Okay, it's a little bit to the side. A little bit to the side, but well, we sure haven't pulled anything out. Although the squelch is set relatively high, and we may not be picking up, if it's little crystals, we may not be picking them up. Okay. Yeah, this quartz is just coming apart like it was packed in here like a puzzle. Everything's pretty tight but loose. So I'm widening the hole right now to get access to this side where I think the specimen is. And I want to be careful not to break it if it's a really nice specimen. Yeah, it's in the same spot there. Just gotta widen the hole. Be able to get at it. Okay, it's a little bit over here, this side now. That's good when you start to detect it on one side or the other rather than straight down. It's easier it's a lot easier to dig on the side than it is to dig straight down. And there's just a bunch of loose quartz over here, so it's got to be probably a specimen that grew right here in this quartz. Let's see. You can see this whole area is just solid quartz. It's broken up in blocks. And it's been infiltrated with tree roots, which also helps break it up. Just get this guy out of the way. Okay, now I got a nice wide hole. Whew. Haven't moved it, but boy, it's getting hot. Okay, but it's further up on the side here. I think we're getting close now. I think we're getting close. I just need to move a couple more blocks of quartz. And let's be a little bit more gentle over here. Okay, it seems to be right in this rock over here. I'm probably gonna have to widen the hole yet again. Start up here at the top. Try to work around this rock. It's a big one. I'm going to move the camera a little bit. Okay, so it's this solid rock right here. It seems to be right in this. Oh, actually, it might be next to it. That would be good. Looks like it may be right here below it. Sometimes at this point, I go ahead and reset the squelch to make it a little bit more obvious which direction this thing is. Okay, so I'm gonna seems to be right down here in this corner. Kind of glad that's, well, I'm not so sure. This big rock seems to be extending down into this area. So I'm gonna have to expose more of this rock. I don't know if you can see that this rock here, the hottest spot is right down in here, and I don't know whether it's in the rock or next to the rock, and I'm gonna have to excavate that little area. I'm hoping it's next to the rock, but okay, no, it still seems to be over here, maybe in a pocket. Okay, here we got some loose rocks. Anyway, I think I filmed enough at this point, and I'll just show you if I pull anything out of here. I'll show it to you. Well, I've continued digging this hole here. Look at all this quartz that I've removed, some giant pieces. I could hardly lift them, but I just kept getting deeper and deeper into the solid quartz, and would find a little seam and break another piece out. And I finally found a little nice piece of euxenite. This is actually a very, very nice crystal. And so I'm sure there are a lot more of them down there, because the place is just wicked hot, but man, it is hard to dig. So I'm gonna go have some lunch and then maybe come back and see if I can retrieve anything else. So I'm giving up on the hole, at least for now. And as I was passing by it with my gammaDog, lo and behold, I got another hit. Evidently I pulled this out early on and didn't even notice it. This was the first specimen that I pulled out of that big hole that I spent a couple hours digging. And I called it euxenite previously, but it's actually, of course, a monazite. And it's a very, very nice crystal. Got great crystal form. So, and then as I was leaving, I passed the gammaDog over the dirt, and this one came out. And it turns out to be a really nice cluster of apparently euxenite crystals. And so it was a lot of work digging that hole, and there may be some more stuff in there that I can pull out, but at least I got these two nice specimens. So I'm back here with my dogs at this place where I removed so much quartz yesterday, and I wanted to see exactly where the hot spot is. So I brought out my Johnson meter, and it's reading, if I can get it in focus, it's reading about 15K counts per minute. Now, if I move it around a little bit over here, up here, down here, over here, it's more like 1,000. But if I get it right here on this spot, right in there, that's the hot spot. So that tells me if there's any chance of me getting at it, it's got to be right in here. And I may bring some water, kind of watch this area and see if I can see a crystal. All right, with a little water and a paintbrush, I was able to clean up all around here, and with some careful measurements, I can tell that this is the crystal right here, and it's sticking out of the matrix quite nicely. Let's just do a quick measurement. So right on top of it, I'm getting about 30,000 counts per minute, which is about right for a euxenite that size. And of course, all around it, it's pretty quiet, but right on top of it. So that has got to be the crystal right there. Now, this is quite fascinating, because how in the world, after removing all that quartz, do I end up with a crystal sticking out of the matrix like this? And The reason is because of the radiation that this crystal is emitting for millions of years. It ends up weakening all the quartz around it, all the matrix around it, and that's why it developed cracks, got a little bit weak, and I was able to extract all of these big blocks of quartz around it. And that I've kind of accelerated the weathering process. This is normally would take millions of years for this crystal to weather out, so I've kind of helped it along the way. But yeah, that's pretty fascinating, and I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get this thing out or not. It's not wiggling right now, but you can tell it's a nice crystal. I don't know, it almost seems like it's wiggling a little bit, so let me see if I can work on it a little bit more. Well, this is about as good as I'm going to be able to do right now without breaking off this crystal. You can see it looks like maybe the termination already broke off up there, but the bulk of the crystal is still in the matrix. And I pulled out a few pieces from this hole. I'll have to go see if one of them looks like it could be that termination. Well, so you remember that nice termination of euxenite that I found yesterday out of this hole, and sure enough, let me see if I can get it in here. Sure enough, it fits like a glove. And so if I could get this entire crystal out of here, it would be pretty spectacular. So this is an area that the last time I was here, I found a lot of columbites. And my friend Joshua looks like he found a couple too, because there's a couple of fresh holes there. So all those holes downhill, I figured, well, let me look uphill. And uphill is this giant pit. And also the last time I was here, I dug into this pit, and it's just hot as can be, but you can't get anything out of it. It's just probably a zillion little monocytes. And so here I am on the rim of this, and there's got to be something between there and this pit. So that's decided to come look up here and see what I can find, because there's just got to be something up here. Uh-oh, here we go. Oh, that's a hit. So let me see what else. I can probably pull a columbite out of here, I'm guessing. So here's the first one. Pretty big chunk of something. And pretty hot. But there's another one down here too. So let me keep digging. Okay, I think this monster down here must be it. Yeah, that's got to be it down there. I'm gonna have to work my way around it, because it is a really big one. Well, this is hard to believe, but this was the big one that I pulled out. It was the actually, I think this was the first one, and this was the second one. But then I just keep pulling things out of here, and it's even harder to believe, but those are small. compared to this one. This, I think that's the crystal. It looks like a huge terminated crystal. It's longer than my hammer. So let me just very carefully work my way around it. Well, I try to be honest with my viewers, but this big piece turned out to just be a big piece of quartz. So it was hiding something underneath it though. So there's still something humongous underneath it. So I'll keep digging. Well, I think I'm gonna have to call it a day. I pulled, I don't know, a dozen or more pieces out of here. And it's just as hot as when I started. So this is your classic pod. These crystals grew up right here in the matrix. I'm digging these out of packed quartz that fortunately is all fragmented, so I can pull it out, but it's still packed in there tightly. So this is a pretty exciting find. I'm going to make a few preliminary observations about the crystals that came from this pod, and then there'll be more to follow, I'm sure. But the first thing I noticed is that I've got at least two minerals here. I had expected columbite, and you know, this is pretty classic columbite look. And also when I measure it, it's not extremely hot. But the first thing I noticed was that these little guys here are actually quite hot. Let me turn on the these little guys here, for their size, are getting up to almost 10,000. And obviously, well, evidently we've got columbite, but most of it is this other mineral that's a lot hotter. And I noticed this one, for example, looks like columbite on this side, and if I measure it over here, let's see, it's getting up to about 8,000, which is respectable. But if I turn it over, it shoots up to 17, 18,000. So we definitely got a different mineral on this side. And if you look really closely, this mineral is made out of cute little square, little perfect crystals. So I've never quite seen something like this. I'll be real curious to XRF this and see if it's euxenite. I guess I wouldn't be surprised, but I've never seen these tiny little cute crystals like that. And virtually all of these are the same. They've got one side that's columbite, but then they've got another side that has this alteration coating. So that's another indication that these all came from the same pod. They're basically the same type of specimen. So we'll figure out more tomorrow. Okay, it's another beautiful morning. Jorge thinks he sees something to be wary of. But I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm back here at this crazy pod hole, and my plan initially is to have a quiet spot down here, and I'm going to work my way through my tailings, because I've undoubtedly got some specimens in there. And once I've cleaned up my tailings, then it'll be easier for me to tell when I've pulled something hot out of the hole. Okay, so I've got it relatively quiet here downhill from my hole. So I'll be able to tell when I pull something hot out. But that's what it sounds like inside. It is just wicked hot. Now at this point, I wish I had my big shovel and pick. I would actually excavate this bottom part of the hole so that I could get down there and kneel inside the hole. But as it is, it's getting so deep, it's getting very hard to get in there and dig and also move the dirt out of there. So we'll see what I can do. So this is what I pulled out of that pod this morning. And the first thing I observed after washing everything off was that second mineral that we observed on most of the pieces yesterday, on the pieces I first pulled out of the pod, they were on top. They all had this secondary mineral. And you can see a very clear boundary between the columbite and this second mineral, which, you know, may be euxenite. So that's interesting that yesterday we had a lot with that second mineral, and today we had relatively few. So it made me think how these things could be formed. What formed first, the columbite or the second mineral? And I think the indications is that the second mineral formed after the columbite. For one thing, it sure seems like the second mineral is growing on the columbite rather than the other way around, and especially on a lot of the pieces yesterday. So that's one observation. And then the other is that these don't have that secondary mineral. They're coming more from the interior of the pod, which makes me think that the columbite pod formed first, and then as it maybe exhausted the niobium, and it allowed this other mineral to start precipitating out of this molten magma, quartz magma. So it's probably all very complicated, but I have a lot of time to think about these things. Now, once again, I'm gonna check out a couple of these things to verify that, for instance, this is columbite and this is whatever the second mineral is here. So the columbite is measuring about 8,000, and when I switch it over to the other side, it gets up, you know, to 20,000. So that once again shows that this has to be a different mineral. And so that's it for the observations this morning. And the only question is, how much more of this stuff do I want to dig out of that hole? Because it's getting harder and harder to dig. So we'll see. I'll let you know. So I decided to try pounding here into this crack, into this separation here, and sure enough, we've got cracks forming all the way to the crystal. That was what I was imagining would happen, because actually there are cracks all around this. So I'm hoping that applying enough pressure and breaking away pieces will actually free up the crystal. But we'll see. So I've broken away the quartz on both sides, here and here, and I just started working on this one up here, and there it is. There it is. Almost completely intact. Looks like there's just a little bit left over here. Oh man, that's unbelievable. And you saw it. You saw how I did it. Wow. Now I need to go see if that other piece fits on here. Well, this has been quite a trip. A lot of interesting finds. Successful in every way imaginable. And then to top it off, I found this guy, and you can see this is what I found a couple of days ago in the tailings where I was digging, and this is what I just popped out of the matrix. So you can see this fits together like a glove. This is one of the most exquisite euxenites I've ever seen. Look at all this twinning. 1, 2, 3, 4 twins here, and then it continues on to the top, and it finishes off with these spectacular little crystals here at the top. And here's another one back here. This is really an exceptional piece altogether. Look at this nice facet over here. And then to top it all off, believe it or not, there is a monocyte traversing the center of this thing on the back. So this is an amazing specimen, and in the end of quite an adventure on my trip to Petaca, rock hounding in some of the most beautiful country in the world. And I couldn't have done it without my trusty gammaDog. So if you want to find more hot rocks, give me a shout on my email, gammadogger@gmail.com, and let's see about getting you one of these guys.